All right, my friends, that's pretty much it. We've set up everything we need to set up for Kubernetes, at least in our development local environment. We're now going to start thinking about how we can take this application and deploy it off to a production environment instead, such as AWS or Google Cloud. Now, before I show you a diagram that's going to walk through the series of steps that we're going to use to deploy this, just one quick last thing. Again, if you're seeing the not secure message up here, totally fine in a development environment. We're going to eventually fix this in the production environment. But again, in development, no issue whatsoever. Okay, so let's walk through our deployment steps. So the first thing we're going to do is create a GitHub repository. We're going to create a GitHub repo. We'll also create a Git repo locally on our local machine, and then push all of our code up to GitHub. After that, we're going to set up a Travis CI project to tie in with our GitHub repo as well. So we're going to use a very similar Travis CI focused deployment method as we did previously on both of our Elastic Beanstalk projects. Travis CI is going to be in charge of building our images and pushing them off to Docker Hub. And then after that, we're going to use Travis CI to also deploy our application to a Kubernetes cluster. You can use other CI environments if you choose to. In general, maybe not in this course, I recommend you do use Travis along with me, but in general, you could use other deployment or other CI environments such as Circle CI if you choose to. They work just as well as Travis. Just in this course, I chose to use Travis because in general, it's a very reliable service, which makes it quite appropriate for a course. After that, we're going to set up a Google Cloud project. So again, we're not going to deploy this Kubernetes application to AWS. We're going to be using Google Cloud instead. And I've got a whole slide that I'm going to show you in this video in like 1 or 2 minutes that's going to outline the reasons that we're swapping from AWS over to Google Cloud. Again, trust me, very good reasons that we're going to use Google Cloud here as opposed to AWS. Now, something that's very important, and this is really the main point of this entire lecture, is that in order to deploy this application off to Google Cloud, you will need to enable billing on a Google Cloud account. And that means that you need a credit card or some type of payment card that is accepted by Google Cloud. Now, if you are in some country that does not have access to Google Cloud, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to walk through these deployment steps, but that is just kind of the reality of the situation. Now, the billing aspect here is rather important to mention this time around because unlike the Elastic Beanstalk stuff where we paid $0 if you were in the free tier or you paid very little if you were outside the free tier, unfortunately this Kubernetes project is going to encourage just a little bit of billing and it probably is going to be for the most part unavoidable. Now, I want to very quickly show you a calculator that you can use to get an idea of how much you're going to be paying for this Kubernetes project that we're going to set up. Just so you know, I put like all the Travis CI setup stuff up here, even though it kind of makes sense to create the Google project first. I put all the Travis CI stuff earlier up here to minimize the amount of time that we have to have this Kubernetes cluster up and running and causing you to have to pay money. So I am very much conscious of the fact that you probably don't want to be paying a lot of money to learn all this stuff. Now, if you want to get a good idea on how much you're going to be paying, you can do a Google search for Google Cloud Cost Calculator, like so. You'll find the first result here, which is products/calculator. And then on this page, we can very quickly get an idea of exactly how much money you might be paying over a short period of time that you might be running this application. So on this page, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here just to make sure it's very legible, you can select Kubernetes Engine at the top. And then under Kubernetes Engine, we're going to be running 3 separate nodes. We're going to be using the standard instance type, so you can leave that as the same. So I'm going to scroll down, leave everything else the same, and I'm going to click Add to Estimate. I will then find the persistent disk section. On here, we're going to have one persistent disk that's going to have like 2 gigabytes of space. 2, like so. So you can add in a 2 and then click Add to Estimate. And then you can also find load balancing right here. We're going to have one forwarding rule, and we're going to, at best, be transferring about 1 gigabyte. Like absolute no way we're going to actually be doing 1 gigabyte here. I guess you could go down to megabyte if you want to, and we could probably say like something like 100 megabytes is probably much more realistic. And then you can add that as an estimate as well. So if you look at the total price for all this thing, it comes out to around $42 per month. Now, if you're running this for only 1 day, because the billing here is like on a per minute basis or something like that. So if you go through all the Kubernetes videos in this course in like 1 day, then you're going to be paying about $42 divided by 30. So that's something like, I don't know, $1.40 or something like that total. So $1.40 if you get through everything in here in 24 hours. If you get through it faster and shut everything down, you'll be paying even less. So in general, probably not going to be paying anywhere near $42 as long as you complete all this content in a reasonable amount of time. I just want you to be aware that you are going to be paying at least some tiny amount of money here. And you do really need to make sure that you absolutely clean up all these instances after you get through this content, especially if you like quit halfway through. You need to be making sure that you close everything down. And of course, at the end of the Kubernetes section, I'll give you a very detailed video on how you clean all this stuff up as well. Okay, so that's my spiel on pricing. Now, we're going a little bit long here, so let's take a quick pause. And when we come back to the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about why we're making use of Google Cloud over AWS. So quick pause, and we'll cover that in the next section.